So artificial pollination means no insect, no wind, no water is the carrier, but man himself is the, is performing pollination. He's not the carrier, but he is doing it artificially. Okay. Now today's world, many things we can see artificially they are done. Okay. Artificial insemination, artificial pollination, everything is done artificially, right? Like babies can also be produced artificially. Artificially means they are produced in a laboratory, right? So here also artificial pollination, they are carried out in a laboratory by whom? By plant breeders. Usually the peoples who are more into botanical things, more into plants, or we can say who have their nurseries of their own. Okay, some people, they are very fond of flowers, so they just open up their nursery of flowers, okay, of different plants. So the plant breeders, they used to artificially transfer the pollens to the stigma of different plants, right? So now artificial pollination is also called as artificial crossing. Just underline that in the second paragraph of artificial pollination. First line, these days artificial pollination also called artificial crossing. Okay, standard practice adopted by plant breeders and scientists in their efforts to evolve new varieties. So along with plant breeders, scientists also use artificial pollination for what? For getting different new varieties. Okay, we have different varieties of different plants nowadays. So that's because of this kind of artificial pollination method used by the scientists and also by the plant breeders. So now if we move forward, the step is given like how plant breeders do artificial pollination. How they do? They remove the anthers. Yes. Yes, is anybody saying something? Okay, can I continue?
Yes, miss.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So here in artificial pollination, the scientists or the plant breeders, they remove the anthers of young flowers. Okay, why we are considering young flowers? Because if the flower is old or if it is not that very much matured, or we can say, or it is over matured. Just a minute. Yes, or it is, if it is over matured, then they will not be able to fertilize or they will not be able to pollinate other flowers. Okay, the capacity in older flowers is low regarding or compared to the younger flowers. So we are taking, the scientists to take young flowers, they remove the anthers of those flowers. So this process of removing the anthers of young flowers is known as emasculation. Just underline that. The same paragraph, fourth line, they remove the anthers in young flowers, emasculation. So how can you write the definition of emasculation? The anthers of young flowers are removed, or the process of removing the anthers of young flowers is known as emasculation, and then they are later covered by plastic bags. That process is known as bagging. Okay, these anthers, they are covered by plastic bags, and then later they are pollinated with such flowers like which match their variety, which is from their species itself. Later they are pollinated artificially through these plant breeders. Now we have some examples of pollination. First one, in insect pollinated sweet pea. Insect pollinated sweet pea. So is anyone willing to read this paragraph? Like if only I read, it will be very boring. So that's why I'm asking you to read so that you will not sleep also, and it will be an interactive session. Do anyone want to read this paragraph? If nobody wants, then I will just say a name randomly and then you have to read. I'm not going to read. Okay, then I'll say a name. Sumit Charan, are you there? He left. Okay. Anybody? Yes. Who is this?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, Shweta.
Yes. Who want to read? Who is, you know, who has unmuted the mic? I can't see. Azim?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay. Who is this 9K?
Ma'am, Shwetang Kumar.
Okay. Shwetank. Okay, Shwetank,
Yes,
can
ma'am.
you read this paragraph on page number 42, 5.2? Some examples of pollination.
Yes, ma'am.
Only this paragraph, okay, up to page number 43. The first, first paragraph. Up to there, you have to read. Just read it.
Okay, ma'am. In insect pollinated sweet pea, the insects such as the bee alight on the conspicuous corolla. The bee thrusts its long tongue in search of nectar. In this struggle, the wing petals of the flower are depressed. The wing petals, along with the keel petal, are forced down, and the stamens and stigma touch the underside of the body of the insect. If this insect has already visited another flower, it may have some pollen sticking on its body. The pollen is now transferred to the stigma of this new flower, thus affecting pollination. When the insect flies away, it may in turn carry some pollen of this flower to, to other similar flowers. However, if cross pollination does not take place, there is every chance of self pollination in this case, since both the stamens and the carpels are enclosed within the keel and are more or less at the same level.
Okay, okay, Shwetank. Okay, very good. So, I hope you have understood something in this paragraph, right? Not only Shwetank, but everyone, because this is very easy. This paragraph itself says in insect pollinated sweet pea, we are taking an example of sweet pea in which the insect is, we are considering a bee, right? A honey bee or a normal bee, we can say. So when this bee, so here basically what is shown, pollination through insect is shown, like how pollination is taking place. We have already discussed this. I'm just going to tell you in a detailed way. So when this bee, when it comes and sit on a flower, for example, we are again taking a hibiscus flower. So when this bee just, why bee is coming, I already told you insect pollination means the flower will have nectar, okay, sweetening agent. Nectar is a sweetening agent. It will have fragrance. So a bee will obviously look for a flower which has fragrance and nectar from where he could collect maximum nectar. So when this bee, when he struggles, thirst means when he struggles and in search of nectar in that particular flower, what happens when this bee come and sit, it just struggles to find the nectar. It is just disturbing the whole flower. Okay, the petals, the sepals, everything is just getting disturbed. So when he is struggling, the petals and the wing petals are the keel petals. So wing petals means the open white petals, and the keel petals are the ones which encloses the organs. That means the bottom petals. Okay, you can see bottom, like consider any flower, like take rose also. The outermost two three petals, they will be fused together, so they are known as the keel petal. They are enclosing the other petals and the other organs, right? So both the wing petal and the keel petal, they are forced downwards. That means they are pressed by that bee, so that, and then what happens, the stamens and stigma touch the body of that insect. When this insect is just struggling to find the nectar, he is just pressurizing that flower. So the stamens and the stigma, they just stick to the body of that insect. And if this insect has already, visited a flower and collected nectar from there, some stamens will also be there from that flower. So when he comes and sit in this flower, he is just cross pollinating, right? He's When he comes and sit in another flower, there that previous pollen grains, they are shedded here, and from here when he goes to another different plant for collecting nectar, again the pollen grains which are stick to the body of the bee from here, they are transferred to that plant where he has gone next. Okay, so this is a kind of, this is a chain happening from one plant to another plant, then from here to there. Bee is just, going from here to there for collecting nectar. So in this way, cross pollination is taking place. But in some cases, we know that cross pollination will only take place when, pollination only takes place when the species is same, right? This is very common case. So when the species is same, pollination will take place. So, but here, even if the species is not same, we don't know. Okay, we don't know whether the species is same or not. But even if it is not same, self pollination will obviously occur. Okay, why? Because the hibiscus plant we are considering, it will also have some hibiscus plants around. Okay, around them. So self pollination is very common here. It will obviously occur, no doubt. It will occur. But cross pollination can occur or may not occur. It is a doubt, it is a question mark. But self-pollination will obviously occur that time. And since both the stamens and the carpels are enclosed within the keel and are more or less at the same level. So why we are saying that self-pollination will obviously occur in this case? Why? Because both stamens and carpels are within the keel and are at the same level. That means insect will come and sit. It will obviously, shed the pollen grains from different plant to this plant and pollination will occur. It is an obvious thing. Are you getting my point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now we have figure 5.4 on page number 42. Figure 5.4, we have some parts of a flower. You can see the first one, A, whole flower. Then B, standard petal, wing petal, keel petal. Can you see the difference? Standard petal is the broad, large petal. Then we have the wing petal, which covers the standard petal. And then last is the keel petal, which supports the other petals or which encloses the other petals from sideways and from bottom. That's the keel petal. Then we have flower removed petals. Okay, here the petals are removed, only we can see the stamens and stigma, style, etc. Then we have a pollen grain, that is a picture, a view of a pollen grain, not a dissectional view, but a simple view of a pollen grain. Then we have the carpel. Carpel is the female reproductive organ. Don't get confused. Okay, carpel, pistil, they are known as the female reproductive organ of a plant or a flower. Okay. Okay, then we have nothing to understand in this figure 5.4. Only you have to just know what does a whole flower look like, what is a wing petal. Okay, the shape of the flower or shape of the flower you can keep in mind. Then we have second, in wind pollinated maize. In wind pollinated maize. Okay, who will read this? Azim?
Ma'am, can
Yes, yes. Who are you? Okay, may I know your name?
Gautam?
Okay, Gautam. Okay. Okay, actually in my screen your names are not visible. Only 9M, 9K, like that it's visible. Okay, Gautam, you proceed.
Pollination is brought about by wind. As the wind blows, the pollen from the outwardly hanging anthers is blown away easily because the anthers are so loosely attached to the filament that the slightest wind will shake them. The pollen blown away by the wind may fall on feathery stigmas of the female flowers, which have a large surface for this purpose. The flowers mature earlier than the female ones, so there are less chances for self pollination.
Okay, okay, Gautam. So in this, what we understand in wind pollinated maize. So here the example is taken maize plant. So here, as we already know, in wind pollination, the pollen grains are very light, small, and smooth. So they are basically lightly attached with the filament. Like anthers contain the pollen grains. You all know it very well. Anthers contain the pollen sacs and the grains inside that. So these anthers are attached to the filament. So they are very loosely attached. Why? So that they can they can be easily carried through the wind. They are very loosely attached to the filament. And when the wind blows, like even if a small intensity of wind is blowing, not we don't need a large intensity, but even if the intensity of wind is low, the pollen will be thrown out or it will be carried because it is very loosely attached to the filament. And one more thing, in wind pollinated, we know the stamens hang outside. Okay, they are very long and they are hanging so that they can be easily carried or easily flown by the wind. So that's about wind pollinated maize. The stamens are very loosely attached, sorry, the anthers are very loosely attached to the filament, and when the wind blows, it will shake the filament and the anther will be, will be separated from that filament and it will fall on another flower. And here, the male flowers mature earlier than the female ones, so very less chances are there for self-pollination. Okay, so only cross-pollination takes place here. Okay, self-pollination chances are very less. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, then we will quickly discuss this progress check. We have 3 to 4 minutes left. Progress check on page number 43. I'm just telling you the answers. You just write the answer. If it is already written, you can check. So match the items in column number 1 with those in column 2. Feathery stigma hanging out.
Wind pollination.
Yes, wind pollination. Feathery stigma hanging out. Wind pollination we discussed right now. Wind pollination stigma hangs outside. Then different timings for maturation of anthers and stigma. Different timings.
Dichogamy.
Dichogamy. Yes, very good. Then pollination by elephant,
Rafflesia.
rafflesia. Then flowers produce nectar. Obviously, the ones which is left, yeah, entomophilus. Then, now what is the reason behind this? Flowers produce nectar, entomophilus. What is the logic? Entomophilus means insect pollinated. So that's why insect, feed on the flowers which have nectar. So that's the logic behind this. Then complete the following statements. Pollination is the process of transfer of what? Pollen grains.
Pollen
Pollen
grains.
grains.
Yes, very good. Write it, pollen grains. Second one, the two kinds of pollination are,
Self and cross.
Self pollination.
Self
yes,
and goals.
yes, self and cross. Then third one, for self-pollination, the flowers need not be dash and showy.
Colorful.
No, it is not colorful. For
Attractive.
self-pollination, the flowers need not be large. Okay. Why? Because in the same plant, flowers are there. So flowers should not be large enough. They can be small also. But in wind, they should be open wide. They should be large. So here, for self-pollination, the flowers need not be large and showy. Then for self-pollination, dash and dash must mature at the same time. Male
Anther
and
and
female.
stigma.
Yeah, you can write anther
Anther
and
and
stigma
Male and
also.
female.
Yeah, both you can write. Anther and stigma also you can write, or you can write male and female also. They both could be correct. Then fifth one, self-pollination does not yield dash varieties, new varieties. Okay, self-pollination does not yield new varieties. Only the old varieties are yielded again and again. Sixth one, in dash pollination there is much wastage of dash.
In wind
Cross and pollen
pollination.
grains.
Yeah, it is not cross. Cross is the right answer, but in cross we have three types: insect, wind, and
Wind.
water. Yeah, so in wind pollination
Wind.
there is much wastage. Yes, very good, very good. In wind pollination, okay, you have to write wind pollination, much wastage of dash. What is that? Pollen grains.
Pollen grains.
Yes. So okay, we have did up to this. Now fertilization we will do in the next class. Okay, we are stopping here. Any doubts?
No doubt,
No,
ma'am.
ma'am.
No doubt, ma'am.
Okay then. Okay, you may leave.